Good evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura McKillop. I'd like to start just as a big thank you as our last episode for the year, just to mention a few statistics for everyone that supported us over the year. It's been pretty unreal to have a look at our Spotify Wrapped for Dog Talk and see that we've actually been streamed in over 15 countries. To think this started out as something as a bit of fun, and it still is fun, and all the rest.
Do you reckon 15 of them, all 15 of them speak English, and or some of them just listen to us?
Listen to
Maybe
it.
subtitles or something? Yeah. They're like, what the fuck is that Dan guy saying?
But on top of that, we're the top podcast for 453 fans, top 5 podcasts for 1,000 fans, and in the top 10 podcasts for 1,200, which is
it's pretty cool. I'm sorry, I am looking that way. I'm actually looking at the stats on Laura's computer as we talk. So to back Laura up there, yeah, that's massive. To have a community out there supporting us like that. So thank you very much.
And on that 1,200 fans that we're in the top 10 for, we actually have an average listen per podcast of just over 1,100 listens. So that's saying on that average, we're in the top 10 for majority of those.
It means 1,100 people listen to our dribble.
Yeah.
Over and over, 110 times now. 102
Poor
times.
them, I say.
Oh, man.
Got to listen to your voice every fortnight.
English is my third language. Like, Jesus. But all that to the side, Laura, thanks for bringing that to our attention as well. I literally only just found that out when we're just about to go live here. That's really cool. Do you want to introduce today's guest?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you to Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our fortnightly Q&A. But tonight, to end the year off, we're speaking with Tom Joyce.
Tom will pick who he believes is asked the best question of the night, and they will win a bag of Enduro high-energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat. How you going, mate?
How are we, guys?
Good, yourself?
Very well, thank you.
Big year, Joy, for you there, mate. I was going to call you Joycey, and I was like, because I called you TJ earlier today, and I didn't get a nibble, so I was going to have Joycey there.
No, I get them all, mate, so whatever comes out, she's all good.
Mate, big year for yourself.
Yeah, it has been a big year. It's been quite remarkable, really. Pretty proud of the dogs, and Bianca and the kids have done a good job.
Anyone that doesn't know Tom, you're going to learn a bit about him. But I personally met Tom at Nyngan this year at the Australian Utility Championships, and I had to put him in a chokehold submission just to kind of convince him to think about jumping on tonight, because he's a very humble bloke and doesn't want to kind of big note himself. So, mate, I know this isn't your normal thing to kind of blow your own horn, but thanks heaps for coming on. And you're not blowing your horn, we're going to learn a bit about you tonight, right?
Yeah, no, and I super appreciate what you guys have done with the podcast and with the magazine and everything. It's so cool to just be promoting healthy stockmanship and enjoy the love that we have for our dogs and working, and it's good. Love it.
Well, I just want to say on that, it's so nice to get the thank you, but without people like you and all of our other 102 people to jump on, this doesn't happen.
Well,
so
actually,
I actually have more praise for you guys for jumping on.
100%. And like I told you before, you're actually on a family holiday today and left early to make sure that you could be on tonight. So we really appreciate that. But not only that, you've then got to the family home and then driven another 3.5 hours to your other property to make sure that you had service to get on tonight. Dedication, mate. That, we can't thank you enough.
Yeah.
Thanks heaps.
No, privilege is all mine. Thanks,
so,
bro.
For people out there, and you've got a very, very cool story to tell here, that don't know Tom Joyce, mate, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, and especially I'd love to hear a bit about the history of yourself, but also the property that you come from.
Yeah, so we're my kids are the 7th generation to live on our family farm at Wandera, just out of Crystal Brook. Thomas Joyce came out from England in 1877 and settled our place there. And it's the only original land holding left in the district, which is pretty cool. So that's where I grew up, cropping, broadacre cereal, and usually run legume rotation through that.
Every time I have neutral grain now, I'm going to think about you.
That's it. That's
So,
it.
so we're in South Australia, correct?
South Australia, mid-north of South Australia, a couple of hours north of Adelaide. Just above the Yorke Peninsula.
And so I know I cut you short there, but that, like 7 generations, that's remarkable. Like how does that stay in the family so long?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Like my dad and my uncle came home from school together and worked their whole working lives together. And then when us kids came, like my cousin and I came home, we were all working together. And Dad and my uncle just said, look, we've got to go our own ways while everything's going well, and let's help each other expand and go again. So that's now when we've a few years ago we purchased Malakwana Station over on the Eyre Peninsula to run a few sheep and a few cows over here, and that's where Bianca, my wife, and our 3 kids. That's where we live now, and just working both sides of the Gulf in conjunction with one another. And the homesteads are only 60 kilometres apart, but there's 40 kilometres of water in that. So we've got to go up to Port Augusta and then come back down again. So it's a few hours to get around here.
Couldn't do a jet ski.
Yeah, that's exactly what we need. Exactly.
And mate, you mentioned your beautiful wife Bianca there. Bit of a story in how you met her as well, right?
Yeah, I sold Bianca's mum a horse many years ago, and we both found out that we loved water skiing. So she asked me if I wanted to go for a ski up the river, and who knocks back a ski?
No one in their right mind.
Exactly. So we went up for a ski for an afternoon, and the rest is history.
And then there was a horse that way, but was there a dog the other way?
Yes. I actually bought my first dog off of Bianca's mum and dad as well. So that's
and never happened to come with a wife.
Way, but there you go.
Bought a dog, get a wife.
That's right. Cheapest dog I bought.
Do you want to tell us a bit about your sort of story, education before coming back to the property?
Yeah, so I left school and did a carpentry apprenticeship. All I wanted to do was go shearing, but Dad wouldn't let me. He went shearing when he was a young fella, and he said, "You're not doing that." So he made me go and get a trade, and I did that. And Bianca was actually playing hockey for Australia in Perth when we got married. So I went to Perth for a few months and convinced her to retire from international hockey and
to come back.
to come.
I didn't know that.
No,
Did you know that?
No. Man, she must have really liked you.
If not, she can just go to town with a stick on him, right? She's like, Tom, what are you doing? Here's a big puck. Bang.
Yeah. So we, when she retired, we did a bit of came the long way home and worked on a few cattle properties. Just friends of ours just got us jobs, and we just sort of skipped from station to station back around the country before we got home. And then we got home and had some kids and haven't left since.
Do you want to mention your beautiful kids there, mate?
Yeah, so Elijah is our eldest. He's 7. Sydney is 5. And our little go-getter Elsie is 2. She'll be 3 in February.
Beautiful.
They've all had a blast up the river this last weekend for Christmas, behind the boat and mucking around and having fun.
And like, I know they're very young, but do they understand like how unique their setup is? I suppose of like being a 7th generation on one particular property.
They have absolutely no idea how good they've got it, mate.
Yeah.
They absolutely love and fully embrace the privilege of it is to live the lifestyle that we do. We're running like Elijah, our eldest, all he wanted was pigs. And I said, mate, like, we don't do pigs. I've never had a pig. I don't have anything to do with pigs. I don't know anything about pigs. Like, I've given him calves and goats and lambs and horses and dogs and everything, you name it. But all he wanted was pigs. So he actually managed to get given a couple of pigs from a fella down the road, and yeah, for the last 2 years, he's looked after those pigs every day. He's fed them, he's watered them, he's done everything, and he's just sent his first 6 to the meatworks, and he's just got his first pocket full of cash from them, and he thinks that's pretty good.
I was going to say, he'd be loving it.
Eight generations looking good now, right?
Yeah,
oh, that's unreal.
Pretty cool.
So what did you say? 1876?
1877.
77. Wow. And you mentioned you said Thomas Joyce, right?
Yep. Thomas Joyce, after Thomas Joyce, the original.
Oh, that's where I was going now. Obviously, yeah.
Yeah. So pretty cool.
So,
and other than the love for it, was there anything else that sort of brought you back to the property?
Nah, I was a bit like Elijah. I think I decided when I was 3 years old that I was going to be a cowboy, and that was just that. I was just never ever was there anything that I wanted to do. I just wanted to go and chase cows. Basically, that was all I wanted to do. Yeah.
So the property you're on right now that you travel to have this talk with us, that's where your stock are?
Yep, that's where our stock are. So our property at Wandera is 100% continuous cropping, and we've just traded livestock out of there. We had grazing country over that side as well, but my uncle and cousin ended up with all the grazing and livestock side of things, and Dad and I just ended up purely with cropping stuff. So we've come over here to get a bit of country that's suited to some livestock.
And how big's that block?
So Malaquana's 32,500 acres. So we've got a couple of thousand ewes here, and plus replacements and everything else that's hanging around.
Yeah, cool. So I'm assuming merino flock there?
Yep, merino flock, SRS merino flock. Sitting around that 18 micron in the wall. And then we wean all our lambs home to Wandera, sort of August, have them on some green feed over there, and then run them through. And we finished all our lambs last year, and bought the red taggers back over here the other day.
Do you know where you can get some decent crop price well?
Some decent what? Sorry.
Some decent crop or grain price well?
Yeah, that's it. I got to convince Dad that it's worth putting in a silo instead of me dragging it to the silos in the truck.
Because that would have been different, right? Like everything else would have been normally trucked out, nothing kept for your own, or very little kept for your own grazing potential. Yeah,
we ran a Woolworths accredited beef feedlot when we were together with my uncle, and we had a grazing block down the bottom on the coast on the eastern side of the Gulf. We've always had stock and always played around with stock and always traded livestock and everything else. But it's just a different setup now, having land further away, and but it's good. We're enjoying it and having a bit of fun.
And how do dogs fit in there, mate? Has it always been dogs around, or was that something integrated when you got the newer block? Or
so never really, like, Dad always had a dog, but if you could call it a dog, but we never had working dogs as such. I went to Queensland training horses, and Anita Martin up there, I was training horses for Kenny May, and Anita had a team of sort of 20 Kelpies. We're working out at on Eidsvold Station, and we were just wandering out on the horses with the dogs, and the dogs would go and get the cattle, and we'd wander back in, and it was like, this is too easy. I've got to get myself a dog. So then that's the little Kelpie dog that I got from Bianca's mum and dad. Old Pearly, she's still out in the box now. She's retired, but she's been a good old dog for me.
So she was your first true work dog?
Yeah, she was my first true work dog. So I got her before we moved to Perth and before we did our trip around. So she was sort of 3-year-old by the time I got back home. I'd left her with mum and dad, and dad had taught her nothing but to jump in the cab of the ute. So, yeah, that was sort of, played around a bit with her. And then it wasn't really until I got Sammy, that little dog that just repped the other day. She was sort of the first dog that I really trained as such. Old Pearly was that was my baptism of fire.
So for someone that like kind of just had dogs around growing up, and then when I got a real dog, a work dog, right? Not a real dog.
Yeah,
right?
yep, heading dog.
Right. Yeah. How? I'm assuming you come home, and there wasn't a lot of experience to lean on. So how did you educate yourself to help educate your dog?
Yeah, so I grew up with the old philosophy of what are useless dogs sitting in the gateway while we're at the back trying to push the stock through the gate, and nothing against Dad or Linton or anyone else. We just didn't have a concept of a heading dog. So I said to Dad, like, where am I? So Anita's dogs was the first time I saw a dog go to the head and bring stock to you. And so very fortunately, Anthony Island lives 5-10 minutes down the road from me. And Dad said, you should go down and talk to Anthony. I think he's pretty good with his dogs. I think he's won a couple of Australian championships and represented Australia and won heaps of state championships. He'd probably be able to help you. So fortunately enough, I just fell on my feet in that regard. That Anthony just was so good to me and just put so much into me. I can't thank Anthony enough.
Yep. So Laura just realised I didn't plug our speaker in here, so she just double checking that. But you've been able to hear us fine.
You can't trust him to do anything.
I set it up. I just forgot to plug it in. But you've been hearing us fine, obviously, yeah?
I can hear you, mate. Yeah, clear as clear.
Fantastic. So you go to Anthony there. You already have Pearl?
Yep, got old Pearly and go down to Anthony's and he's like, oh, mate, that's a Kelpie. It's probably, we could probably turn it into a farm dog, I suppose. And because Anthony loves his border collies. And we went down there and I remember Anthony telling me that, mate, you'll probably never get this dog to cast for you. And I remember ringing him up a couple of days later being like, oh, Anthony, you'll never believe it. I got her to cast for me. That was just how it was.
So how far did you have to travel to go and see him?
Nah, so fortunate. Anthony is literally we actually have land pretty much next to each other. So we're pretty much next door neighbours. Yeah.
Just 60 Ks and 3.5 hours isn't that close? But I was wondering if it's that sort of close or actually next door. Nah,
only 5-10 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
And then so when Anthony lined me up with a real dog, when I got the little border collie, I literally I was down at Anthony's, every other day, every week, sort of just lived in his pocket and just tried to clone myself off of him, basically.
Yeah.
And what were some of your biggest takeaways from having little experience to then going to someone that had a lot of experience? What were some of the biggest takeaways that you took away personally?
Yeah, it's a bit of a blur, really. But I remember, like in the early days, just going down to Anthony, and he'd pick up a stick or something and just flick it just at the right time as this dog was about to come around and chop in or bust in or something, And I remember thinking to myself, how does he preempt that? How does he, it's like everything was just happening so fast. I just couldn't see it. And I remember the moment when everything just begun to slow down, and I remembered, you'd notice the ear twitch and the nose move and the sheep shift, and everything just slowed down, and everything went into slow motion where you could actually, you could preempt what was about to happen because you'd seen it before, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just having a self think at the moment because the way I introduced how big his year was, but we normally finish with trialing stuff. But we probably do things a bit to ask about today.
Yeah, just have a chat.
So we mentioned earlier about how big your year was, and we're going to do things a bit back to front here. But your year was massive because not only did you have some success trialing today or this year, but you represented Australia for your first time. Do you want to tell us a bit about how that come about, how you got there? Because normally we don't talk about trialing until like later in the night, right? But I blew it up early on, and we know just how humble you are. So if I don't push it, you're not going to. So do you want to tell us a bit about how that come about, mate?
Yeah, it was pretty incredible, really. So this little dog, Oakdown Sammy, is who she is, bred by Anthony's dog, Ben. And so I've just loved her since the moment I've had her. Like, she had her first trial at 12 months old. She won the novice and the improver and was second in the open to Anthony's dog at 2 at Barmera. She won her first open trial at 3, and she made the Australian team at 4. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind for me, really, along the journey, and I've just fallen on my feet, really. I was also given a little Kelpie dog at the same time, and he was a Gumtree dog that a friend of mine had got, and he had to go and drive a truck, and he asked me if I'd look after his pup, and I was like, mate, I'm not looking after your pup. I'll look after him, but he's not staying here. And anyway, he just turned into the most amazing little dog, and I found out how he was bred, and he ended up being Karana on one side, Coogee on the other, and he's just turned into an absolute brilliant dog for me. And so, yeah, I was privileged enough to have him represent South Australia at Nyngan in the yard dog for the utility champs. And then,
so he's staying now?
Yeah, he's staying. He's staying. Bianchi appreciated that he sat around and played with the kids, so that's why he stayed at the start. And yeah, no, he's just been the most beautiful dog. So to do that, and then even with making this state team for the 3 sheepers, I remember at Barmera, everyone was adding up Dog of the Year points as to who was going to make the South Australian team, and everyone had, who had to do what and whatever else, and I was nowhere even in the ballpark. I'd had a couple of seconds and a couple of fourths and whatever else, and I was about 15 points behind everyone else. And so no one was even. I remember sitting there in the circle, and they were all talking about it. And I just remember thinking to myself, all I have to do is win the next 2 trials, and I got a chance at this. And yeah, so she happened to win the next couple of trials and ended up in the South Australian team, and ended up making the Australian team at Strath.
Which was pretty cool experience for you.
Incredible, yeah. The privilege and the honour it is to one, represent your country, but 2 to get to do it with Stefan from South Australia as well. And then to be fortunate enough to be on a year where we get to go to New Zealand. For John and Joyce Camilleri to be able to be fortunate enough for those guys to be able to send us over there. It's incredible. It was an amazing experience.
Thanks, Heath. And you said earlier, like the Kiwis were just so giving in their information to you guys as well, right? Like they really wanted to help you guys. And there was a question here. Have you got it there?
No.
I'll dig it out here. There's a question here from Ryan Ackers, and it said, when you were in NZ and spent time with Mike Brown, what was the biggest takeaway you got from him, and how can we implement it into our training principles over here?
Yeah, absolutely. The Kiwis were amazing. I don't know that it's always been like this. I think there's been a fair bit of argy-bargy over the years, but just second to none. They looked after us. They gave us great sheep to work our dogs on, and the Copelands, Hugh and Mark, they were just unreal out there. They looked after us, and then we got to go out to Mike Brown's, and Steve Kerr brought some hunterways out, and that was pretty cool to see him work in the hill country. So for Ryan's question, like I think probably one of the takeaways, we got to chuck our little dogs out there and give them a run on the hills, and that little dog of mine, she's pretty fast, and she sort of burned out, kicked out real nice, and just hit the bottom of this hill and just went and just bogged in the bottom of this hill. And to see her just battle her way up this little, it was just like what they'd call a little hill. She was pretty steep. But yeah, then so just to see the way those the Kiwi dogs work in that country and on those stock, it's sort of chalk and cheese, you know. My little dog especially, but I think the Aussie dogs in general upset those Kiwi sheep because we love to hit the head, but those Kiwi sheep don't like agitating the head. They want you sitting out, one back, just driving. Which our dogs aren't accustomed to doing probably. But yeah, as far as takeaways, like the way they train their dogs is they put a lot more dry work into their dogs than what we do. Their dogs have an incredible temperament to be able to take that training. I know speaking to a few guys back at home, they said, we've bought the rope stuff back, we've bought stuff back that the Kiwis have shown us, and our dogs just wouldn't take it on a temperament basis. So I think it's horses for courses a little bit as far as, you know, what we do works for us and what they do works for them. But, you know, there's definitely room for that overlap for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And after that trip, have you come back and changed a couple of things you've done, or have you kept it the same? Is there anything you've implemented into your own stuff, your own training program?
Yeah, I don't think as much. Like they do a lot of that dry work stuff, and I have come back and played around with that a little bit. Some dogs enjoy it, some of the dogs don't. I think probably the biggest thing I've come home realizing from New Zealand is that in Aussie we get our dogs to a point, and we keep a lot of natural work in them. We keep them, because everything has to be so fast and catchy and hold that stock so much. We leave so much dog in them. But I think there's a level of training that we can actually take our dogs to again that will enable us to be able to work those different types of stock in those different scenarios, which we don't have to do to be successful in our trialing here. Like, we know that our course is going to be generally on a footy oval. It's generally, it's generally going to be set up the same way and a similar size and everything. So we can carbon copy everything so much. Whereas over there, they know they're going to have a head in their cast, and they know it's going to be somewhere between 500 and 800 meters. But what the terrain looks like, what the hill looks like, what everything looks like, it could be completely different every time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a difference that we have between here and there.
And when we talk about the dry work, like, can we be a little bit like, can you break that down a bit more? Like, are they just doing a lot of lead work and just working on sits and stays, or are they working on casting their dog, dry casting? What particular lead like dry work?
Yeah, so like they'll put their sides on their dog with no stock. Like I met a fella who literally just lives in town in the backyard. He doesn't work any stock as such. He just literally trains his dog dry in the backyard, and then he'll go to a trial on a weekend and basically just work his dog. So I think it's probably a lot more mechanical versus us using the stock to sort of put our sides on our dog, put our balance on, put our stops on. We sort of use our stock to do most of the hard work for us, whereas those guys generally use a rope and a stick.
So you obviously use your dogs at work as well, and then trial on the weekend. Do you find that helps you with your 3 sheep?
I think
Or you use a different team of dogs, sorry.
Yeah, no, definitely. All my dogs come to work with me. And, I'll grab a different dog for a different scenario. Every dog has a strength and generally a weakness there somewhere. But I think it does, like in the interstate challenge at Nyngan, for example, it was dark at night time. And we sent our dogs down into the dark at the back of the oval. And, we just had to trust our dogs that they were going to do, like we couldn't put anything on them. That we just had to trust that our dogs were going to get those sheep back down to us. And I don't know, I just find there's a lot of times where my dogs are out blind working out in the bush there somewhere. And I just got to trust them that they're going to bring those sheep back.
Yeah, absolutely. And to trust that those people in the let out were like setting up for success too, right?
That's it, staring the absolute gizzards out of them.
I promise, mate. I was giving them all grain and just patting them in the back, just singing to them. It was sending them out in a nice manner. Right? That's it. I just had a quick question about the dry work. You mentioned the ropes and sticks, and obviously they're using a bit of pressure on a leaf to move those dogs around. Having a horse background, did that stuff come to you a lot easier? Like being able to understand how they did that dry work?
Yeah. I completely understand how they're doing it.
They're basically lunging, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah, exactly. Like if anyone's been to a Tom Curtin concert, he just gets his dogs going and basically works his dogs the same way. I think for me, just trying to carbon copy myself off of Anthony so much, I've just, I've probably, even in my 3-4 years that I've been working dogs, I guess I've sort of, really probably ran a fair pattern as to how I train those dogs and work those dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And how long have you been actually trialing?
Yeah, so this was my 3rd year.
Right. And so 3rd year, dogs 4-5 years. How has trialing helped you at work?
Absolutely, 100%. I wouldn't have half the dogs I've got now if I didn't have to show up at a trial somewhere and put my dogs on a 20-cent piece. It just I'd have a few pearlies running around.
Do you not think though that your background with the livestock helped you get so far, not in front, advance so quickly with it as well? Because you actually understood stock before you went to then try and train a dog to work the stock. You already knew how to work stock.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I got to credit a lot of that stockmanship and the psychology of animals to Kenny May. He was just an absolute master at just getting in the horse or the beast mind and working that and even the positioning of your horse on a beast, how that works and whatever else. And I think that absolutely relates to positioning your dogs and understanding, like, you know, a dog and a horse, they're completely different, but at the same time it's you're still working with animals.
Mm-hmm.
Mate, even through this chat and the few chats we've had before, you always come through like you're just so level-headed all the time. How is that the case, or like are there moments where Tom Joyce gets frustrated with things, or do you try to really keep yourself like at a kind of like a mono kind of level?
No, mate, I've got a I was trying to we were talking about it in New Zealand with Simone, and I was trying to work out whether I had a short fuse or a long fuse, but once it goes off, it goes bang. And so no, mate, I'm probably, I'm shocking for that, but I, like, again, coming back to Kenny May, Kenny always said, Tommy, we train our horses like we're competing, and we compete like we're training. And you know, just even just from a stress side or a nerve side of things, you know, everyone always says to me, oh, how are you so calm? It's like, well, I've already put all the pressure on myself at home, you know. There's heaps more pressure trying to get 6 strays out of the national park here in the Blue Bush than what there is trying to put 3 sheep that I've broken down in a pen on a trial ground. Like, so I think you've got to, you know, here's a little trade secret for the competition, but, you know, even when I'm working a dog before a trial or whatever else, you know, I'll give myself, you know, no time at all to do something, and I'll just push, and I'll make sure, like, I can make sure that those dogs will work under those scenarios as well.
Yeah.
Laura might remember my Supreme run with Sammy. I don't know.
I just remember, and I really want to ask, once you pen, what's the go with picking her up?
Well, all I know is that Anthony just told me at the start, whatever you do, don't let your dog go in the pen. and I actually, the first time I trialled Boone, as I was shutting the gate, he just snuck in there in front of me, waiting to walk through the gate, because that's what I do in the yards at home. And so I just, I don't know, I pick him up, give him a pat.
Yeah, just a habit that's come from that.
Yeah, everyone laughs at me and think I'm a bit.
No, I think it's kind of cool, but I just didn't know why, and I wanted to ask because I was like, does she rush in there? Is there something going on? What's your theory behind it? But that makes sense too.
Nah, there's not a lot of theory behind it. I should kick her back out and make her wait while I go and do it.
Because I did watch you run over in New Zealand, and you did the same thing, and I was like, there's something going on. What's this secret they aren't telling me about?
Mate, do you want to tell us a little bit about your current team of dogs?
Yep. So I'm basically 50-50 collies and kelpies. And all of my collies basically are Oak Downs dogs, bin dogs, and then all of my kelpies have a pretty strong Karana base right through them. So Jason Holloway's bred a few of those dogs for me. I think I was going pretty well, pretty strong down the collie stuff while I was at Wandera in the cropping country, and I had that one kelpie dog, old Boone. And when I got over here in the Blue Bush, the collies just wanted to write me an essay about which was the perfect way to get around the bush to make sure that we did it to an absolute T. While the sheep said "see you later" and went 6 different ways, and the old Kelpie dog just put his nose through the bush and belted through it and flattened half our country, and to get to the point where he had to be, and it just became very apparent that there's horses for courses, and those Kelpie dogs have done a really good job on that front for me.
So you mentioned Sammy and Boone. Who else you got around? Anyone coming up or anything special there that you really like?
Yep, I've got a black dog out of one of Mike Depler's bitches. He's an open trial dog for me. I've actually just given him to Elijah. That's his new dog. I've got a little Gramer bitch there by Anthony's Bin. She put up some really cool runs for me at the end of this year. So I'm pretty excited about her. She just rates her stock and reads her stock. Just incredible. Her footwork just amazing. She's super cool. And then I've got a couple of young 9-month-old pups that I've got on the go. Hopefully they come good. I've got a little crossbred pup that I've bred. And then a couple of the other young Kelpie dogs that just need a bit of miles under their belt.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. And I know you mentioned calves earlier. So do you have cattle as well?
Yeah, I've got a handful of cows.
Yep.
It's more sheep country over here, so we've sort of just running the sheep basically. But Bianca both of us love our cows, so we've got a handful of cows running around with calves on them.
Yep. And you do anything with your dogs on your cattle?
Yeah, always put the dogs around them, and the typical cattle, they're usually on the wrong side of a fence at some stage. So you're always throwing a dog around them, and they're pretty good. They're pretty quiet cattle, so pretty dog broke. So dogs just float around behind them.
Well, cool. And do you have a particular style of dog that you like and it looks and work?
Yeah, not so much looks. I've just ended up with the last dog of the litter out of all of them. So I've got a pretty motley looking crew, but I love a real feely, styly type dog. I'll take a couple of them over one bull-headed thing any day of the week.
And what is it about that particular style of dog that you like?
I think it's just that they're easy on your stock. They're easy to work. They're enjoyable to work. When everything's happening at 100 mile an hour, it's just tough work. And that's definitely, I think I might have said to you, Dan, at Ningen, I had a little Kelpie dog that went down the ground and I couldn't call him off. And it's the first time I've ever had to chase a dog on a trial ground. And I said, this is a tough gig.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
must be something about those grounds. I've had the same thing in England.
So I just I think that feely type dog that rates its stock and it gets a job done. Sometimes you do need that bulldozer. But not as often as you need that dog to have that feel and that cover and that hold. But they got to have strength. That's the big thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the ultimate all-rounder, in other words.
Yeah, I think so. And to some people, I probably, they'd probably call my dog soft or weak or whatever else. But look, I get fair bit done with I'd sooner chuck an extra dog in the yards than have one dog just rip tearing all day long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And that style of work you're doing has obviously helped, and probably what's given you the edge for chasing that utility trialing and that free sheeping as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like that Kelpie dog, old Boone, he won the Trans Tasman at Barmrow, like the Open, in the middle of the year on the weekend, and I took him home on the Monday, and I cast him around 160 hectare paddock. It was 1.6 k's to the back fence, or 1.6 k's to where the sheep were, and he went down and picked them up. They're just shy of 900 sheep in that mob with lambs on them. And he brought those sheep in through the yards, and we drafted the lambs off and did what we needed to do and put them back out. And and I think that's what I think is pretty cool, that you can go to a 3 sheep trial on the weekend and then go and get a heap of power work done on Monday.
Absolutely, it suits your not just your hobby but your work, and you've got to get your work done. And there's a dog that's simply doing that for you. So why would you need to go down a hard path, right? Something that's more direct and straight and to bang things around when that dog suits your lifestyle and your work.
Absolutely. I spend, you spend 90% of your time at work all day, every day, and you go trialing for a bit of fun on the weekends, so I think you need a dog that'll do your work for you first.
Do you have a setup or a training area set up to start dogs?
Yeah, I just start the dogs in the sheep yards, and just pick a nice big square pen. I'm a square pen man. I like a good corner. That was a Kenny May edition, right back from when we were breaking horses, and then. Yeah, I didn't have I did not even have a patch without blue bush on it at Malakwana. So I had to go and build a yard down on a clay skull, set my course up down there, so I could cast a few dogs and have a bit of fun down there. But I think start just stay in control until you've got your handle on your dog, and then kick them out as fast as you can and let them learn.
And you've mentioned your cast a few times tonight. Like, do you have a particular shape cast that you like, and how do you encourage that?
Yeah, I like my dogs to kick out right from, so I probably have more of an arc or like a big arc on my dogs more than I actually have a true pear-shaped cast. Love the concept of having a steered cast on my dog. Love the concept, but I don't. But at the same time, most of the time, the dogs can either see the sheep or you're not expecting them to go up in the hills and find stock necessarily. So I like a nice wide arc at the start, and then they'll generally, they can kick out from there and keep picking up stock out the back.
And how do you go about encouraging that from the get-go when your pups are small? So when just giggling at me there, I went to pour my water and I missed my glass.
Well and truly.
There's water all over the table here.
If it was Flynn doing it,
I'll get cranky at him. Yeah. But that's what Laura was laughing at there. So how do you go about encouraging that cast when you got your little pup there, mate?
Yeah, well, again, it starts right from the start in that round yard. Once you get that stock on your dog and you can stand it there and you kick it and get those arcs and pull it back around behind you and just setting it up right from the start and just basically just being consistent and not right from the first time that a pup goes into the yard, just like let it have fun. Absolutely, let it have fun. That's the whole point. But don't let it do anything silly. Don't let it make mistakes right from the start. Set it up for success right from the first time it goes in there to have a bit of fun.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have a full course set up at home that you train on?
Yep. Yep, I did. I went and built myself I thought if I'm going 3 sheep trial, and I got to have a course to train on. So before I think I'd been to my first trial and went on the South Australian Working Sheepdog Association website and got the course dimensions and built myself a course in the shed at night and went and set it up and had no idea what to do with it, but it looked good.
No, that's cool.
I love it. So you still got a fairly spread pack of team there. Have you bred any of those dogs yourself, or are you still just getting dogs outside?
Yeah, so I have got a pretty spread team, and I suppose I've had a fairly diverse type of dogs as well, even with inside my team. Just trying to find out what I like and what I don't like, because I just, everyone says like, oh, I like this or I like that. I'm like, oh, I don't even know whether I like that or I don't, or I don't know. But the longer you spend time with those dogs, you're like, oh, I like that or I don't, or whatever. So I have bred Sammy. I had her over at Neil Samble's place, who bred her. And we had a dog there that we were trying to use. But I sent her over a couple of weeks before she was meant to come in season, so we make sure we get her. Anyway, it was over summer last year, and she spent 4 months at Neil's and never came in season. And Neil sent her home, and the day I got her home, the dog started sniffing around. And so Neil said, you know what, mate? Put that good Kelpie dog of yours over her, and you'll get a work dog at least.
Always away.
That's not funny, but it's funny.
Yeah.
Like, you put all that time and effort in, and come on.
Yeah.
And so that's the crossbred pup you've got?
Yeah.
And how's it going?
Yeah, it's only what are they, like maybe 5 months old now or something. But yeah, beautiful little pup, like lovely to have around. Bold as brass and in the yards, and yet still has that feel and that cover and hold. So yeah, look, they're too young to say what they're going to be, but I'll love her for what she is at the moment, for sure.
Yeah.
And only been like a short way down this road, like 4 or 5 years. That's still like really green, right? Like when you identify that you want a dog for your team now, and with the experience you've got and the people you got around you, does Tom Joyce now go, I want to breed this, or I'm going to look at a dog from this person over here or that person over there? What's your thought process there?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely have narrowed down what I like in a dog, how I want my dogs to work, what I need in them, what I can't handle. I think I've definitely leveled out a few of those questions. So yeah, definitely. Like I just want a dog to try. I just can't handle a dog that won't try. But at the same time, he was a brilliant yard dog, but heck, he was just full on. And I've had a dog like that, and I just know that I don't want that either. So, look, I'm not real picky, but definitely have ironed out what I'm looking for in a dog, for sure.
And is there any lines out there that you'd like to try?
Look, there's so many dogs that I'd love to try, but I've managed to collect too many dogs in the last 3 years now, and I've got a team of brilliant dogs. Like I've got a couple of dogs here. Might be a plug for anyone looking for a good dog, but I've got a couple of good dogs here at the moment that, like, I can't. They're brilliant dogs, but I'm at capacity. I can't keep. You can't keep them all. So, there's a couple of dogs there that probably would make incredible work dogs for someone. But yeah, I can't. You can't hang on to them all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you did mention there, like you've mentioned a bit about 3 sheeping tonight and utility trolling, but you mentioned about doing a bit in the yards as well. So obviously you're still doing your yard work with these dogs at utility and free sheeping?
Yeah, yep. I've had Old Pearly's been my main sort of go-to dog for the last little while. I had that really good yard dog that Dad now has. And so those guys have done predominantly my yard work for the last few years. But having said that, now, I've just sort of, again, I was carbon copying myself off of Anthony. He's very straight down the line with all his three sheep stuff and making sure you get that outside work right first. So I've really focused on that, and now realizing, wow, I need to make sure I don't let these dogs slip in the yards too.
And your dog's backing sheep in your yards?
Yep.
Do you prefer to work the outside of a race?
I prefer to work the outside of a drenching race, just purely so you're not bashing those dogs around. But all those dogs will back and bark and everything else, except Sammy. I can't even get her to jump in her box at night time. So I've got to get the
Mate, she's representing the country. You should be chauffing her everywhere.
She doesn't need the back.
She doesn't need the back anymore, right? Oh, at all. And the reason I ask you that, because you mentioned before, like, some people would consider your dog soft or weaker, and you do a lot of free sheep work. So a lot of people wouldn't expect those dogs to be back in a race or asking for a bit of bark and getting it. So that's pretty cool within itself, right? You've really got a multi-purpose tool there and a few of them.
Yeah, I think so, and I hope so. If I couldn't go and get a couple of thousand sheep in and put those couple of thousand sheep through the yards with that one dog, well, someone else can have it.
Yeah.
I probably do expect a fair bit of those dogs, but I think you get out what you expect in them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've spoken about some influential dogs for yourself. Is there any in the last 4 years you've been around? Are there any dogs that you've seen around and gone, and you've done a bit of traveling in the last 4 years, they've gone, wow, I'd love to have that dog in my pack?
Yeah, there's definitely a few that you look at and you go, oh, that's so cool. And then you think, how would I be able to wreck that dog? And, so I think that dog's brilliant because it's with that person. Would it suit me? I don't know. All I know is what I have works for me. So, I think, you're always looking and wondering.
And having a split pack yourself, like, have you got plans to breed and have your collies and your kelpies, or will you go down the mixed line, or you just see what happens?
Yeah, that's a really good question, mate. I think the hardest part about having the split and having trying to keep them, pure, or even trying to create crossbreds, either or, you just end up with so many dogs around you. Whereas, that's the best part about having, Neil and Anthony and even Justin, Anthony's son. Like, we've all got the same dogs and the same pool and all want the same outcomes and everything. So, we can have a heap of dogs between us, but we've only got a few ourselves. I think, I think for me, it's probably more of, I don't have any great aspirations of trying to make my fortunes out of dogs or anything like that. So I'm probably just going to use them for what they are.
Speaking of aspirations, obviously, you've competed at the highest level of the sport. Very quickly. But have you got any other aspirations for the future with your dogs?
Aspirations, not really. Like, I never set out to really do anything in the dog world other than to give my dogs the best opportunity they could possibly have to be the best that they could be. And at the same time, put the work into myself to make sure I wasn't the weak link in the chain either. As far as aspirations go, I asked I asked that question the other day, and someone just said about winning a Supreme. And so if there's one regret I have, is that little Kelpie dog being a bit of a buff head in the final of the Supremes and not listening to me. That's definitely a regret, if that's any aspirations.
No, that's cool.
So you mentioned before about that little pup you had, the crossbred pup, was just the last one left. Have you got a secret handshake, or is there a particular way you like to pick a pup for yourself?
Nah, like I said, mate, I've picked one pup, and it turned out pretty so-so. And the rest of them that I've been given as the last dog have all been my good ones. So, no, I'll let other people pick them for me, I think.
Sounds like the safer route. You got it?
Yeah.
You got it? Cool. Oh, shit, that just absolutely escaped my head. So you mentioned like the feely dogs that you really like. Do you think there'll be a plan or a time where you might have to look at something different or incorporate something else based on what you've achieved, or even changing up the goalpost at some stage? Or are you fairly confident in yourself of keeping the goalpost the same?
I think, that's the beauty of having the Kelpies and the Collies. They are different inside themselves. So, I've probably got a little bit more horsepower in those, in the Kelpies. They'll work at dry cattle, no worries. They'll work the yards, no worries. Even those border collies I've got, they all work the yards, no worries. They all work differently, but I'm not sure who made the statement, but position over power. If those dogs have got a decent head on their shoulders and they're clever, like a smart dog, that's what you want. You want a smart dog that'll put itself in the right position, more though so than something that's just going to bulldoze straight through the middle of them.
Yeah, cool. And like we were talking a lot about heading dogs before, and the Kiwis with a lot of driving. And obviously in the Supreme course, there's that, what's it called?
Not the Supreme, the
No,
Trans-Tasman.
The Trans-Tasman, where you have to drive. What's that? The Maltese Cross? I should bloody know that one, shouldn't I? So is that something now that you're trying to put a bit of emphasis in on your dogs, is doing a bit more driving work away from that heady stuff, or a lot of that catch, let go and catch ahead? Yeah,
it is. I think it's just something that naturally has just been incorporated in our day-to-day work. Every opportunity that you get, you drive and stock along with you. You've got your dog out on the wing, you're on the other wing holding. Just even in your flock work, your general flock work, you're working on that constantly. So I think it's just, look, the hardest thing to do is definitely pull those real strong heading dogs, is to get them off of the head. But I would much rather battle with them to pull them off the head than not have a heading instinct in them to start with.
And that was a leading question for me, because this is what I was going to ask. So how do you go about getting those real heady dogs now to start driving?
Yeah, it comes back to just that real foundational basis of, whether it's in your round yard as a pup, whether it's, in your training pen once you've got them outside, but just making sure that you've got that good solid stop on your dog, step in between them, kick them around behind you, and let them chase the head again the other way. Reward them with getting to the head, but pulling them off balance in the process.
Yep. So and how do you yourself, those dogs that are real heady and want to slide when you start to drive, how do you start to correct that?
A lot of fence line work is really, really healthy. I'll do a lot of fence line work early with those young dogs, and I think it promotes getting to the head, but it also is a really healthy tool to be able pull them off balance and hold them off balance and walk them in off balance, and get that dog best being comfortable with wherever it needs to be, but reward it by getting to the head.
Yeah, absolutely. We've spoken about some like pretty cool shit tonight.
We've covered a lot of topics, and I've completely stuffed your whole plan. So sorry.
No, it's all cool. No, it's been sweet. Well, like we've spoken about, like going from like just working at home to then representing your country. Excuse me, and like the control you have to have over your dog. When you've come home, and the family, the old boy, and they've seen you work your dogs. Yeah, you said you know where I'm going. How has that? What's the feedback been from the family where all of a sudden now, like, you know, you've gone from like just a dog being around to now having these dogs trained to a pretty high standard? Has it been receptive at home? And off the back of that, have they asked like, hey, show us how you do that? Or... Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Like so I actually had a bit of an accident with that dog that I said was a real yardie type dog. He got knocked off the back of the ute and had a pretty bad accident with his back legs, and so Dad actually took him on, and Dad's having a great time now. He's working him, he's kicking him out, he's casting, he's a real biddable type dog where you can just sit him anywhere, and so Dad's on the bandwagon now, and he's enjoying having a dog that can actually do a job for him, and you know, I think in the early days, I lost my first border collie. My mother ran her over, which was pretty devastating at the time. She just started getting going, and so I'm pretty hot on cars and making sure your dogs are on a lead or in their box or whatever else. And so I think that's out of everything, that's probably the biggest thing that in the family side of things that they appreciate the fact that. You keep a dog on a lead or on a chain or on the back of the ute or in their box or, you know, working.
And, you know,
I was going to say, how's your dad? Obviously, he's enjoying having a trained dog around and enjoying it. How's he seeing the difference in your stock and the time it takes to do work, having a dog that can go out and do it with him?
Yeah, I think like Mum and Dad probably still don't quite comprehend the fact that you can just take you and a dog and go and shift a big mob of sheep somewhere and poke them through a gateway and put them through the yards and do something that would have been a full-fledged event on the calendar once upon a time, that now it's just you can do, you know, from going and catching one sheep to go and working a big wing of sheep. It's all the same, you know. You might just need an extra dog with you if it's a big mob.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to try and push the stock over the dog in the gateway anymore, right?
No, that's right. That's right.
Do you look at that now and actually understand why that dog was in the gateway though?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Heaps of good heading dogs have been shot by plenty of farmers because they're useless dogs in the gateway when they're at the back trying to push. And it's just dogs on balance, heading the stock.
Doing what it was bred to do.
Doing what it was bred to do. Absolutely. And I think, you know, that's a big mindset change for a lot of farmers. And it's one of the healthiest concepts that someone can come to. You know, you still get the people that, I don't want to be standing in the gateway and they're having to bring the sheep past me in the gateway. It's like, no, you just step on the side of the gateway and you work the lead mob through the gate and let the dog bring up the tail.
I remember when I first started this business and we had a few people send their stock dogs here. I said, what's wrong with the dog? And they go, we'll be working the cattle that way. And the dog's just always in the wrong spot. I go, what do you mean? They go, they're just trying to bring the cows back to us all the time. And I was like, okay. We don't have a dog problem here. We've got to educate people.
Yeah.
And that's where I suppose that question led to was educating your family and the people working with you about understanding the genetics of a good dog.
Yeah.
Right. That's massive.
Absolutely. And when it's habitual and when it's what you've always done and you've always known, when you're standing where the dog needs to be, and the dog's standing where you need to be. That's just it takes a bit to change that. But once that clicks, man, things just flow, and the day just becomes so enjoyable. The dogs love it. You get to enjoy it, and you get to have fun.
No, absolutely.
And
yeah.
as someone who obviously went out and did a carpentry trade and then come back to the industry, is there any advice you'd give to someone that wanted to pursue a career in the industry?
Yeah, I had to think about that question, and I think for me, if I had any advice for someone that wanted to be in this industry, find someone who's doing it well and go and spend time with that person. Don't just go and find the first person that's willing to give you all the tips, because just because they've got a willing mouth doesn't mean that they may actually head you down the right path. And I'm so fortunate that, I happen to, land with Kenny and with Anthony and those guys that are in the top of their class. And that's the only thing I can credit why I've had the privilege of doing what I've been able to do in the last few years, is only because I've been around the best. You are who you hang around. You are what you eat. So
that is a Wog Boys line from the movie. I remember that one. We won't go there. And off the back of that as well, and you mentioned, Anthony, and what we're talking about advice. Well, I'm sure there's a heap of people out there, and some probably listening back here, that they have a team of dogs, they get the job done, but they probably could do it better. What advice would you give to those people that are thinking about, I could go see someone that has a reputation for having some handy dogs, but I kind of don't want to be embarrassed by going and doing that, because I've been kind of doing a job and getting away and kind of not letting an ego get in the way, I suppose. You know where I'm going with that? Yeah,
absolutely. And the thing I would say to that is exactly that. Don't let your ego get in the way. Because I've met very few people that don't actually want to help. I know myself, I'm the first person to put up the fact that, I only said to Bianca the other day, I really need to find somebody to help me train some good yard dogs. It's just something that I haven't really put the time and or spent the time with people who do it well. So that's the biggest thing. Just don't let your pride or your ego get in the way. Just ask, and everyone loves giving you their opinion.
Why do you think dog talk's grown?
And while we're on the advice page, like someone that's looking at whether they're getting into the industry or whether they want to start trialing, what advice would you give to someone that wants to purchase their first dog or pup?
Yeah, same thing. Find somebody who is doing something similar to what you want to do and is doing it in a manner in which you want to do it as well. Don't go down to the fella that's always yelling and screaming and carrying on if you don't want to yell and scream and carry on. Go and find somebody who's, working their stock real sweet and everything looks too easy, and find the person that you want to be like and go and spend the time with them.
Mm-hmm. Is there anyone you'd like to see come on to Dog Talk for a chat?
Well, seeing I'm taking Stefan's place tonight, I'm looking forward to hearing what Stefan has to say. He's one of those fellas that he's a quieter type fella, but he's got an absolute wealth and a depth of knowledge, and so that'll be really cool when you get a chance to do that.
We'll try and tie him in for the first one back next year. And you guys are going to try and do a swap on us, which would work good. So we're going to have Stefan for the last one, you for the first, but because of our work commitments, we've switched them around, and we're very fortunate enough that, like we did mention earlier in the night, that you actually put yourself out to come on tonight, mate. So we really, really appreciate that.
No, it's all good, and I just really hope, I would imagine that a lot of my thought systems and thinking and understanding on my dogs has actually come from this podcast. I've listened to a lot of greats of the game and a lot of great stock men and women, and had great dogs, and you glean what you can off of those guys that you have, you respect, and you can learn something off of everyone, even if it's just what not to do.
Absolutely. I forgot what I was going to ask. I think you covered it in that anyway. So I was like, don't mention this. And I think you did. But that's cool. Like, it's been so good. Like, we're going to make it easy for you tonight too with picking a question, because our conversation flowed that good that we answered so many things that we normally do. Like, we didn't even have to ask so many questions tonight because the conversation just went really well, mate. You spoke fantastic. But we're going to make it simple. Ryan Ackers, a bag of Enduro coming your way. So thanks heaps for your question tonight. Other questions that come in, you already covered, so we're not going to bother asking those again. And, mate, there's going to be a bag of Enduro coming your way as well for being a guest tonight.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, guys.
One last question.
I'm not going to let you go that easy.
As always, one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks?
Yep, I've had to think about this, and I've got to go with the horses because I know nothing about ducks.
I like that one.
That's cool. But you've got a pack of mixed dogs, so you could throw them all around ducks. Oh, and the pigs. All right. Actually, maybe next year we can go get the pigs and the ducks into it or something. Maybe, I don't know.
Think of something new.
Tom, thank you very much for your time tonight, mate. Much appreciated. We know you put yourself out. I know we've mentioned a few times, but we really appreciate that. Thanks heaps.
No, I really appreciate you guys, and really appreciate the podcast and everything you guys do. And it's good to have a healthy influence out there on the industry. So great work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And to everyone listening back, thank you for listening back. To everyone that tuned in tonight, thank you. Like Laura said at the beginning of the night, this is the last one for 2023. Jesus, we're 2023. Where did they go? Thanks heaps for your support during the year. Please have a safe and Merry Christmas. Anyone traveling, get plenty of sleep. Don't drive under any influence of anything. Travel safe, and we hope to see and speak to you all in 2024.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jeepers.
Please remember, we learn every day, and the day we stop learning is a sad one for all of us.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Cheers.